This message comes from Solidigm. Yesterday's approach to storage can't meet the demands of today's AI ambitions. Bigger, faster, and more energy efficient, Solidigm solid-state storage solutions are optimized for AI. Learn more at storageforai.com.
Do you share your location? Do you do location sharing with anyone in your life, or do you follow anyone's location in your life?
I share my location with my kids because they don't allow me to go anywhere else without. They're like, we want to make sure you're safe. They're grown.
I'm not like obsessed about that stuff, but my best friend is. So she'll be like, oh, you're at Bryant Park, so you're at work, so I can't call you right now. She checks to see when she can call me.
I go everywhere, so like I just let people know where I am.
And you don't care.
Yeah.
You're like, whatever.
Because I'm always on the move.
Do the people in your life need to know where you are? From what I heard talking to people in Bryant Park in New York City, I'd say location sharing is quickly becoming a new social norm. One survey from market research polling firm Civic Science found that 41% of Americans share their location with someone they know.
I often hear the joke about location sharing where people say, it feels like I'm checking in on my Sims every day.
But there's a bunch of new social rules, some tricky etiquette, and a whole trove of privacy questions that come with this technology. Are we just trading privacy for convenience? And who really needs to know where you are?
That man does not need your location.
To break it all down, I'm here with Gina Sherilis, New York Times styles reporter and writer of their Third Wheel dating column.
Thanks for having me.
And Tatum Hunter, internet culture reporter at The Washington Post.
Yeah, same.
Hello, hello. I'm Brittany Luce, and you're listening to It's Been a Minute from NPR, a show about what's going on in culture and why it doesn't happen by accident. All right, we're going to debate whether or not you should share your location with your friends. But first, you might have heard that this Tuesday wasn't just any old Tuesday. It was Giving Tuesday, y'all. A global day of generosity. I am so grateful to those of you who have already stepped up to donate. Like Sarah in Georgia, who said this: I grew up listening to every NPR program in the book. And even though it's been years since I've ridden in my parents' cars, NPR is still the soundtrack for every drive I take. Public radio is what I turn to when I want to learn, laugh, and find connection. I want programs like Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me and It's Been a Minute to still be around when I'm driving my own kids to school one day. You know what? Me too, Sarah. Thank you. You can be like Sarah too. Please make your Giving Tuesday gift right now by signing up for NPR Plus. It's a simple, recurring donation that gets you perks to NPR's podcasts, and you'll be supporting public media while you listen. Join us at plus.npr.org. And I left you a link in the description of this episode. Thanks again so much for your support. Now, let's get into some culture. Do you share your location or track anyone else?
I have one or two friends who I share my location with almost as a bit where, we turned it on forever ago. We never turned it off, and now we'll acknowledge it once every 6 months. For the people where it makes the least sense for them to know where I am, that's when I become okay with it. But for the people in my day-to-day life, that's a no for me.
Gina, what about you? Do you share your location with anyone, or do you track anybody else?
I do, both actually. So I share my location with some of my closest homegirls, and I want to say maybe 7 of them have my location.
You mentioned that you share your location with like 7 people, but none of them are your boyfriend. Is there like a specific reason for that?
Well, yes. So me and my boyfriend tried it. I would say maybe several months in. He traveled and we shared locations. And I think at some point he forgot. Mm-hmm. But when he realized that he was checking his Find My for whatever reason, and he was like, oh, can we talk about this? He was expressing some hesitancy. And I was like, yeah, it's fine. We don't have to share location. And I was like, yeah, I don't think I need this added sense of security. And I also wanted him to feel comfortable.
Okay. I don't share with anyone, and no one shares with me. Mm-hmm. I dawdle. I walk around. I do things slowly. I say I'm going to leave, and I haven't left yet. I mean, I love my husband. I think he's so wonderful. I don't think he needs to know where I'm at 24/7. I just don't like for people to know where I am.
One of the things I love to do is like go on the app and just see like, oh, I have this friend's in Kenya, this friend's in Tokyo. There's like 2 of us still in New York, this one's in LA. And I'm like,
We're everywhere.
yeah.
You're like, we're so cool. We're
Yeah,
all
exactly.
over.
Like I think me and the girly pops are just like, yeah, like, okay, I see you or whatever. Yeah, but I can definitely see how it's a point of contention for so many people.
This has become a lot more common over the years. Why do you think this has become more of a social norm?
Well, I think it's super convenient, right? As with so much of our tech, maybe it saves us a couple minutes, a couple seconds compared to the way that we used to do something. So before, you'd have to call your husband and ask where he's at. Now you can flip open the Find My app or the Apple Map and see immediately that convenience. And then also the certainty. You don't have to trust that they're telling you the truth. You just get to see it. So it's also a different type of information.
I mean, according to a survey by market research polling firm Civic Science, 41% of Americans share their location with someone they know, with 65% of Gen Zers saying yes. And this might be because they grew up with, casual surveillance being normalized with things like Life 360, which is a location tracking app for families. My parents, they would have loved Life 360. I know they would have been using it to track me 24/7. I can see the desire to sort of like know where your kids are and feel that peace of mind. And now their children who are growing up and becoming adults, they're also now used to kind of continuing to track not just like, maybe other family members, but their peers and friends as well.
What I find really fascinating about Gen Z is that, similar to you, Brittany, my parents kept a short leash when it came to me and my siblings. And I was that teenager who would push back on a lot of those like strict rules. And when I look at Gen Z, I'm like, they're not pushing back on this location sharing. And like, why is that? I feel like if I turned 15 or 16, I would have been like, you guys have to stop, please. I can't be tracked anymore. And I think a big reason for that is I think for their generation specifically, it's very unique, right? They experience record high numbers of mass shootings and school shootings compared to previous generations. I mean, there's like so many things like you can argue as to why this is important and why it's making parents feel better, it's quelling their anxieties, and why the kids themselves may be on board with that.
I mean, to kind of, put a point on it, recently we went into the streets of New York City, went to Bryant Park, and we were practically accosted by a group of 18-year-old theater majors. Literally, all of them share their location with at least somebody. Are all hands raised?
Yes.
Literally right now? And who are the people that you're sharing with?
Family, friends, roommates, grandparents.
And was this something like your parents made you do?
Yes.
But when I was skeptical of location sharing, I don't share my location with anyone. I don't have anyone. What? I'm too old to get kidnapped.
You don't say that. Yeah. But I don't hope you get kidnapped. That's okay.
Yeah, I'm not. Don't worry about it. Yeah, I'll share my location with all of you.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a cultural thing where if you grew up with it always on in your family, it's of course going to seem less strange when you kind of expect it from your friends or your romantic partners or even your coworkers. The promise of safety, I'm sure, was so appealing to families, but it's really hard to predict the ripple effects of this stuff. That lack of trust, you don't need trust anymore if you have this child's location. It circumvents some of the relationship and intimacy and trust that you would have had to build with that child or teenager before. We no longer have to have conversations about where you're at, what you're doing, and whether you're telling me the truth and why, because the technology has short-circuited the whole conversation. And that might be a good thing for some families, but in others, it might be a corrosive thing, especially as, like you said, that kid brings that expectation and that technological shortcut with them into adulthood with their friends and romantic partners. Are we missing out on anything when we don't have to communicate with each other about where we are, what we're up to, and how transparent we're being about that?
I'm wondering where we see benefits for some users as far as friend tracking. Like I've heard of, other reasons why people might like to track their friends, to increase FaceTime, to be like, hey, I'm in your neighborhood. Like I want to drop by. Or there's also something I've heard of, a sense of digital intimacy. What do y'all think about that?
I think that's a big reason for it. I mean, to feel like you have a sense of closeness and also to feel like you've now established digitally that this friendship is real and that it is close and that it is deep. And I think what it reminds me of as a millennial is the MySpace top 8.
Oh, yes. I remember on MySpace, you could kind of like rank your friends publicly.
Yeah, digital intimacy is a real thing. I think it's a way of like becoming friendship official, if that makes sense. I remember one time a friend of mine who I love dearly, she was like, hey, I don't have your location. Let's exchange. But that was the first time that I realized that this was something you could just ask for without it being because I'm traveling or I'm going to be out late. Like I shared it with her, but in my head I was like, oh, this thing has evolved.
But I also like the term digital intimacy because it reminds you that just like other forms of intimacy, it comes with some risk. Just like physical intimacy, for example, it can be really awkward to say no. I spoke with one young guy for a story on location sharing who he was in his first ever like grown-up job, going out for his first happy hour with a new coworker. And, you know, they're talking, they're drinking beer, and the coworker says, oh, I like having all my friends' locations. I like having everyone's location. Can I have yours?
Whoa.
Coworker?
Yes. And this guy was really taken aback. He didn't know how to decline. And so he didn't decline. And so I think that it's important to acknowledge that it's like you're never going to convince people that this isn't super convenient. And in a lot of cases, really fun, especially if you live on a campus or in a city. Like you said, it's so easy to keep tabs on the people you love and meet up with them and know that they're safe. But I think my question for people is always, at what point would it become inappropriate for you? At what point would it become too much? Because otherwise, as with all matters of digital privacy, we're like these frogs in the boiling water, where there never comes an obvious moment where this overreach, whether it's the government's digital surveillance or corporations or our friends and family and loved ones, where it becomes too much and inappropriate, and we do decide to draw that boundary. How much of my digital life is my partner or my parents or my best friends entitled to? And at what point would I start declining?
Coming up?
If I've already given away all this information about myself to Apple and Google, Facebook, etc., why on earth would I draw the line at my boyfriend?
Stick around.
This message comes from Schwab. At Schwab, how you invest is your choice, not theirs. That's why when it comes to managing your wealth, Schwab gives you more choices. You can invest and trade on your own. Plus, get advice and more comprehensive wealth solutions to help meet your unique needs. With award-winning service, low costs, and transparent advice, you can manage your wealth your way at Schwab. Visit schwab.com to learn more.
This message comes from the Sierra Club, fighting to protect America's national parks and forests. These public lands are the nation's legacy, and their future is worth fighting for. Donate at sierraclub.org/NPR, and your gift will be matched.
This message comes from Babbel. Babbel's conversation-based language technique teaches you useful words and phrases to get you speaking quickly about the things you actually talk about in the real world, with lessons handcrafted by over 200 language experts and voiced by real native speakers. Start speaking with Babbel today. Get up to 55% off your Babbel subscription right now at babbel.com/NPR. Spelled BABBEL.com/NPR. Rules and restrictions may apply. This message comes from Capital One Commercial Bank. Your business requires commercial banking solutions that prioritize your long-term success. With Capital One, get a full suite of financial products and services tailored to meet your needs today and goals for tomorrow. Learn more at CapitalOne.com/commercial. Member FDIC.
So we understand kind of like what the emotional sort of reason why many people are interested in location sharing, but I wonder what's the business rationale from Apple or Life360 or SnapMap to offer these location tracking services?
So a lot of the apps that we use are advertising businesses or make money from advertising or profiling their users and selling those profiles to advertisers. And people's locations are a really valuable form of data. They tell us a lot about people, where they spend their time, what sort of businesses they visit, how expensive or cheap those businesses are. While companies like Apple aren't just farming location data and then like selling it to the highest bidder, they do have advertising businesses as part of their corporation. Location data is a huge part of Google's advertising business. And so you start to see how getting consumers used to the idea of sharing their real-time location, not only with each other, but then with the apps in their life and the companies that own those apps, is a real boon for tech companies. They have a really valuable peek into people's lives that they can then use to better target ads or to build more valuable and specific profiles of their users.
I don't know. I suppose with location sharing, we're giving everyday individual people power that, giant corporations already have.
If I've already given away all this information about myself to Walmart.com and, the Department of Homeland Security or, Apple and Google, Facebook, et cetera, why on earth would I draw the line at my boyfriend? I think that we do get really desensitized, and then it becomes really hard to claw back any of that privacy that we might have enjoyed personally, or that might have even enriched our relationships.
I mean, in my personal view, like for me, I'm like, corporations are looking at everybody. Like they don't care about me specifically, but there's meaning when someone that we know personally, they potentially judge or maybe follow too closely our whereabouts and what we're doing.
Yes.
This technology and these location sharing features can be used in situations of abuse.
Right. Married couples have had issues where one spouse will secretly put an AirTag in the other's car. And so Apple had to issue a notice saying, they had to tell people like, hey, guys, this is illegal. Don't use this for that.
Yeah, they put out a press release about that a few years ago, right?
When it's someone you know very directly and personally, and that person also knows where you live, maybe they know your siblings, maybe they know your friends, having your location on a random Wednesday, they can do more damage with that depending on what it is that they'd like to do.
See, I know that sometimes if someone stops sharing their location with you, our intern, Mika Ellison, she described this as like a social faux pas. Like if it's like a thing, or at least like a mini drama to stop location sharing with someone, how do we kind of get out of the location sharing thing?
You got to talk it out. I mean,
but I feel like isn't the location sharing, isn't the point of it to avoid talking?
I think that has become the point of it. But I think because of, just to go back to digital intimacy, I think because of the importance we've placed on it, that means it is something you should talk about with the person who you deeply care about if you're choosing not to share it with them, especially if you know that they'll care, they might feel some type of way, or they might be left confused or abandoned by it. It's like, that's not really kind. I think that if it's someone who you randomly, went out with one night and you guys share locations because they were going home with a stranger and they wanted to feel safe and you never talk to them again, then okay, it's probably fine to just remove the location sharing. I don't think that has to be a deep conversation, but I would just shoot them a text like, hey, FYI, I'm removing locations because I'm now becoming more concerned about my own personal privacy. And I just want you to know it's not personal.
Smooth. I didn't even think about that.
We definitely need a digital protocol for breakups. People these days break up and you kind of forget that person had your Apple login. They had, your Instagram open on their phone. They had your shared photo album of nudes, whatever, right? You get so enmeshed, and then it's hard to even remember all the digital ways you were connected. I dated somebody and then stopped dating them last summer and realized after we stopped seeing each other that I was still sharing my location with them like months and months and months and months later. And of course, this was like a totally nice person. And so it was fine.
Yeah.
But I was just like, oh my gosh, this was kind of a big thing for me to just forget.
Yeah. Okay, so to that end, what is privacy? How do we think about that now?
I think that because different people's preferences for privacy will be so different, a good definition is privacy is the freedom to choose. Privacy is the freedom to choose what you want to share. So many of our conversations about digital privacy, I think, would benefit from being consent-based. I see companies, for example, all the time saying, we protect our users' privacy by doing X, Y, and Z. But the users had no say in any of this. They didn't get to opt out. They didn't even really get to opt in except by using the product or the service. So I think if we were able to move toward an understanding of privacy where everyone really guards closely that ability to say yes or no to each piece of information about themselves that they share, we'd be closer to something healthy. Privacy is the ability to go off the map when you choose.
I gotta say, after this conversation, I think I'm going to continue to not share my location. I'm going to stay the course. Gina, Tatum, thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. This was so much fun.
That was Gina Sherilis, New York Times styles reporter and writer of their Third Wheel dating column, and Tatum Hunter, internet culture reporter at The Washington Post. And thanks to all the people who talked to us on the streets of New York.
Keisha Washington.
Kyle Munson.
Santiago Pinckney.
Nicole Heemstra.
Brendan Knox.
Lucy Roach. Blakeney Malstead. Ashley Vasquez.
Hayden Poe.
Milo Stewart.
Theodore James.
Daphne Flanagan.
Samuel Farber.
Emily Wynn. Kaya Bagley. Ayla Burnham.
This episode of It's Been a Minute was produced by
Liam McBain.
Mika Ellison.
This episode was edited by
Nina Patak.
Engineering support came from
Becky Brown.
Our supervising producer is
Barton Girdwood.
Our executive producer is
Verilyn Williams.
Our VP of programming is
Yolanda Sanguini.
All right, that's all for this episode of It's Been a Minute from NPR. I'm Brittany Luce. Talk soon.
Support for NPR and the following message come from HomeServe. It never happens at a good time. The pipe bursts at midnight. The heater quits on the coldest night. Good thing HomeServe's hotline is available 24/7. Call to schedule a repair and a local pro will be on their way. Trusted by millions. For plans starting at $4.99 a month, go to homeserve.com. Not available everywhere. Most plans range between $4.99 to $11.99 a month your first year. Terms apply on covered repairs. Support for NPR and the following message come from HomeServe. Owning a home is full of surprises, and when something breaks, it can feel like the whole day unravels. HomeServe is ready to help, bringing peace of mind to 4.5 million homeowners nationwide. Plans start at just $4.99 a month. Sign up today at homeserve.com. Not available everywhere. Most plans range between $4.99 to $11.99 a month your first year. Terms apply on covered repairs.